Hello and welcome back to the Not Old Firm YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks, here to look back on a busy weekend of Scottish football. Fairly historic one, all things considered. Not that we'll be focusing on it, but plenty to talk about regardless. Full card of fixtures, got a mini break this week with Livingston v Hamilton Ross County, the only games on this week. So this will be the final review, Premiership and preview sort of double header until they return pre-split. It's going to get it's going to be fairly stop start, I think, for the rest of this month before we hit a really busy April and May with two fixtures on the weekend, return before the split, international break, Scottish Cup, and then the final 5 or so games to the end of the season. So going to be busy, but in the meantime, we'll crack on with the fixtures that went and gone over the weekend. 5 on the Saturday, Aberdeen 0, Hamilton 0, decent point for Accies. Motherwell 3, Livingston 1, Rangers 3, St Mirren 0, Ross County 3, Kilmarnock 2, massive result at the bottom, and St Johnstone 1, Hibs 0. And then on the Sunday, fairly drab event with probably the most significant outcome, despite the fact it's probably one of the dullest games of the weekend. Dundee United 0, Celtic 0. So we'll go in and we'll hear from a few managers and stuff along the way. Aberdeen 0, Accies 0. Much better point for Hamilton than it is Aberdeen. Aberdeen are, I think it's one I think I've seen somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've seen somewhere, I think it's one win in 13 now for Aberdeen. Their form in 2021, yeah, let's just say it hasn't exactly been great. I think it might actually be 2 in 13 or a few in 13 anyway. They've won 2 games since Boxing Day, at home to Motherwell and at home to Kilmarnock, both teams who are still, Mull perhaps less so, but still in the bottom 6. Kilmarnock definitely fighting for survival, and even that Kilmarnock game wasn't exactly the most convincing victory you've ever seen. But again, drop points and they didn't score. They've scored since they beat Mull 2-0. They have scored in one game, and it was that game against Kilmarnock they won 1-0. Apart from that, they have not scored in any games. And that game against Mull was in the middle of January. We're now hitting, obviously, by the time Aberdeen next play against Dundee United before the split, we're going to be in the middle of March, and it's going to be 2 months, and Aberdeen will have scored 1 goal. Aberdeen fans, I'm sure, Derek McInnes expects a lot better. They're fortunate, I suppose, that Hibs, after a really good run, have hit a wee dip, because they're still, albeit Hibs play Ross County this weekend, they could extend the gap fairly significantly to 6 points. Aberdeen are still only within 3 points of third, so they're still well in the mix for that, albeit their form has not been good. For the Hamilton, great result for Brian Rice's side. They've slowly been chipping away. They got a 1-1 draw against Rangers a few weeks ago, a game they probably should have won. They probably should have ended. Rangers' unbeaten season in that game. They were unfortunate not to. And they've just been slowly chipping away, getting a point here and there. They got a point against St Johnstone, a game where they feel they should have had 3. Again, in this one, they were just perhaps a Bruce Anderson away. Said on the preview that perhaps both teams are going to miss him, of course. Anderson on loan at Hamilton from Aberdeen. And yeah, both teams look to have missed a Bruce Anderson type striker, just somebody in the right place at the right time. And but a point for Brian Rice's side away to a team third in the league when they're fighting for the Premiership survival, given results elsewhere, kind of, is a decent point, all things considered, as they go into the run of games with teams in the bottom 6. And they'll fancy their chances of staying up. They always do. Doesn't matter who Hamilton are playing. They could be playing Barcelona or PSG, Real Madrid 6 times over, and they'd probably still find a way to stay up. That's just what Brian Rice's side seem to do. Looking at other matches on the weekend, Mull 3, Livingston 1, and we heard from Graham Alexander and Davy Martindale at the end of this one. Graham Alexander delighted with his side's response to humbling defeats to Hamilton and St Johnstone in recent weeks, following those up with a 0-0 draw with St Mirren away from home before a 2-0 win over Hibs at Easter Road, on top of this 3-1 victory. Davy Martindale, it's I think 6 games now without a victory for the Lions, but he's not blaming fitness for their problems at Fir Park.
Yeah, I think we wanted to carry on the performance and the commitment level and the approach to the game, and we certainly did that right from the kick-off. I thought we started the game in a real good tempo, pinned Livy in for long periods of the game, and deservedly took the lead. And they had a little spell just before half time that they were sniffing an equaliser, and it was a good warning for us going into half time that the game wasn't done. And scored the second goal. Unfortunately conceded quite soon after to make it difficult for ourselves, but I thought we gradually gained control again, and once we got the third I thought we were reasonably safe, but it was only because of the way we approached the game, and delighted for the players. Yeah, I said that after, I think it was St Mirren game when we performed. St Johnstone was a real low for us. I thought we were rock bottom really after that result and performance. Sorry. And then the St Mirren game, even though we only drew 0-0, it was a vastly improved performance in commitment levels and how we approached it. Followed that up 3 days later with a fantastic win at Hibs, and obviously carried it on again today. The challenge we've had in just my period, but when I look back at the rest of the season, is consistency. I think the team's been capable of picking up really good results, but it's not been prolonged over a significant period. And I think that's the first time for well over a year that we've gone 3 league games undefeated. That needs addressing.
It's basic to football. If you're going to give goals away like that in the Premier League, you're never going to win games of football. Never going to win games of football. I think the BBC were talking about the 3 games in 7 days, but I think that's a wee bit disrespectful to Motherwell, if I'm honest, because I think they got up on the first balls and they got up on the second balls a lot better than what we did today. And I think I made enough changes between the 2 games to make sure I still had enough energy in and around the midfield areas to help get us up the park. But you're looking at the scoreline, it's 3-1, and then I don't think Robbie had a lot to do in the game, which is really disappointing because you've lost 3 goals when theoretically they've not had a lot of shots on goal. I don't even know if he had any other shots on goal. Listen, we weren't much better, to be fair. We've got to probably do better. We hit the bar. Liam Kelly's had a fantastic save in the first hand down his right hand post. Josh has hit the bar, stroke post type thing. And then in the second half, I think Matic had won for 5 yards. I'd need to watch it back, but I thought he was going to score, and for some reason it never quite happened. And we got on the end of a couple of contacts in their box in the second half, and just never really done enough with the headers. I think they might have.
Yeah, decent victory for this from all. Livingston, I'll start with them. Perhaps in a wee bit of danger of their season petering out. It's been a really good one for them. And if they get a point against Hamilton at the weekend, then that'll be them securing the top 6 and they get a top 6 spot, a League Cup final position, considering they were perhaps being talked about in the relegation picture when Gary Holt left earlier in the season. Very, very good from David Martindale's side. So, yeah, but they've not been great. Obviously, hearing David Martindale there, not exactly thrilled. They've not been great over the last 5 or so games. 3 games in 6 days away to Mull, who are still fighting at the bottom. A game against Rangers, who have been relentless this season in a League Cup final. All defeats and probably quite hard mentally as well as physically. But they've got a game against Hamilton, chance to wrap up top 6 again. And if they do that, it'll be a good season, all things considered. But they won't want to just tailspin out the season and lose and draw their way over the finishing line. They'll want to at least pick up a couple of wins here and there to give themselves a bit of confidence going into next season. But all things considered, Livingston's season, providing they stay in the top 6, will have been a very, very successful one. And they're not in any relegation danger of that, which is also the remit for Livingston at the start of every season, given the club size. But yeah, they look comfortable still in that top 6 due to the 14-game unbeaten run they went on, albeit they'll not want that. They've obviously came off that unbeaten run and have had a dip. They want to get that as soon as possible. For Motherwell, they maybe just a result away from safety now. Obviously, fans, this is probably sharing similar sentiment to Graham Alexander, rock bottom after a 3-0 defeat to St Johnstone. But now looking at the table to my right, 10 points clear of bottom, 9 points clear of the relegation, placed in 11th. When you consider they have lost every single derby to Hamilton this season, they lost to Kilmarnock just before the new year on Stephen Robinson's last game. They've lost to Ross County on the opening day of the season in Dingwall, so they have dropped points to those beneath them. And even if you want to look up the way as well, they've dropped points on a couple of occasions to Dundee United, albeit they did manage to get that victory over them most recently. So, yeah. But 9 wins, 8 draws, that maybe would be enough with a couple of more draws and maybe a win or two here and there. That points tally is probably enough. They say 40 points is enough to guarantee you safety, and as the old cliche goes. Mull are sitting 5 points off that with 6 or 7 games to go. And they've got Kilmarnock away next after the game's return. If they win that, then I think it'd be safe to say Mull don't really need to be looking over their shoulder, albeit they can't look up the way much either. They are level on points, not level on points, sorry. We'll go on to Dundee United in a bit, but they are only 1 point off Dundee United in 8th. And if they want to be fairly optimistic, they are also only a couple of points off St Johnstone in 7th. So yeah, they can't look towards top 6 anymore, Mull, but certainly it looks a lot brighter than it did just a couple of weeks ago. And a special mention for Liam Kelly, who's been immense for Mull. Another couple of world-class saves in that one, and I will be pushing the boat for him to go to Euro 2020, I think, at least in the March World Cup qualifiers, to see if he can handle himself on the international scene, because there's an argument to be made, a pretty bold one at that, but an argument to be made for him being one of Mull's best players this season, at least most impactful players, despite the fact he only arrived in January, and given that we are only in March, probably highlights the amount of work he's done so far between the sticks. At Fir Park, looking on Rangers 3, St Mirren 0. Focusing on St Mirren, beaten by a better team on the day. They were obviously met. Everybody else seen the headlines over the last sort of maybe 48 hours as this goes out, with the Rangers fans breaking lockdown rules all over the shop. Not obviously well documented at Ibrox, the training centre, and George Square. But if you want to look on even a wee smaller regional basis, just across the road to me, there's fireworks and parties and all sorts. So yeah, it's been quite an. That's obviously taking a lot of the headlines, on top of Rangers securing their 55th league title after this result, and Dundee United drawing the Celtic. From a St Mirren perspective, beaten by the better team on the day, still in control for that 6th spot. They just need a result against Hamilton in a couple of weeks' time, and that will be then first top 6 spot of the Premiership era, which, all things considered, is a great achievement for Jim Goodwin's side, considering the amount of hell they went through with COVID at the start of the season. I think before the start of the season, him and all his coaching staff had false positives, and sort of the maiden COVID scare for Scottish football. Then they had all the goalkeeper situation, and he's had the club shut down and all sorts. So very well done to Jim Goodwin's team. And also 16-year-old Dylan Reid making his debut. I'm not exactly an old pensioner, but the fact that somebody was born in 2005 playing a senior game in the Scottish Premiership does make me feel a wee bit older. Ross County 3, Kilmarnock 2. We heard from John Hughes and Tommy Wright at the end of this one. John Hughes delighted for his Ross County side, beating somebody around them, which was a big step forward for them, as well as hailing Leo Kjeldy, 17-year-old, becoming Ross County's youngest scorer in the Premiership era. Kilmarnock, work to do for them. They're cut adrift at the bottom, and Tommy Wright knows things have to change.
Right, it was all about the result today, Jim. I'm honest enough to tell you, I don't think it was a great game of football, but plenty of action and goals in it. So you take that. It's all about getting the result. We got that. I felt we showed great character and coming for the goal down. Delighted for Billy Mackay, but in general, it's fun to salute the team. He's always been a goal scorer, so I'm delighted. And I think everyone in them played a part. Disappointed with the goals that we lost. We have to be better in that. We can't be sloppy, But Ross County, we make it hard for ourselves. So, for now, at the end of the season, it's all about showing a spirit, a real togetherness. I felt that was there today, and it has to be there Monday morning. Enjoy it. Any of them want to come in here with a swagger on Monday morning, they'll be getting sent home. We've still got business to do. It's got to go right down to the wire. So we'll enjoy Saturday. We're back to work Monday. So, but no bad replacement in Leo, coming on, getting his goal, and took him 10 minutes to get going. But come on, get his goal. Once he knew exactly what was required of him, he's got massive in front of him. He'll not be far away for Celtic's first team when he goes back. If he can this will do him the world good. The world of good, playing with men, training with men, getting battered about, coming back for more. he's got more in the locker. I know he scored the goal, but he's got a great left foot over the top. I need to see him hitting it now and then. But I'm delighted for them all. Even the substitutes that come on, you know, they're disappointed and they're not getting a game, but they're on there. You can see the spirit that they've got to help their team out. So absolutely delighted for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, if you defend how we did for the 3 goals, we don't deserve in the game. So we've got to look at ourselves long and hard, and it's obvious it's got to be better, because after dealing with their early pressure where they didn't work the goalkeeper, we got ourselves in front, and you know, we shouldn't let them back in before half time, but we do, and then our defending for the second, third goals is just littered with individual errors. People not being positive enough on a difficult pitch, go and meet things, and we've only ourselves to blame for being 3-1 down. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, because we've lost a game that we should have won and we were in control of. So, and that's what they've got to realise. I mean, it's difficult. You know, I've defended them in the sort of 5 or the previous games that I've had. But I mean, to lose a game where we're in control in the manner that we did, I mean, it's difficult for me to defend that.
Big result this for Ross County, much needed. They have done well. They have beat Aberdeen, Celtic multiple times, Hibs, but they've not really had consistency against the teams around them. And while one result doesn't buy you consistency, it definitely does buy you a massive 3 points. It lifts them out the relegation zones, and Kilmarnock looking a bit of bother. They're probably the first time this season, well, it's not an insurmountable gap by any matter of means. They are now 4 points behind Ross County, who have a game in hand, and if they can even get a point against Hibs, then that could be a really pivotal one. Could leave Kilmarnock 5 points from overall safety. They are stuck to the bottom by they're a point off Hamilton in the relegation playoff spot. But if Ross County do get a positive result of any sort against Hibs, Kilmarnock could look like the relegation playoff is their best aim. They'll also not be thinking about that yet. Kyle Lafferty scored 2 goals, in which is a positive for them, but at the back, just individual errors. You heard Tommy Wright speaking about it. It's costing them dearly. They do play Motherwell before that. They've already been beaten by Motherwell at Rugby Park under Tommy Wright. He'll be able to prove a point and sort of see how far they've came in the sort of 5 or 6 games that have been before the split. But yeah, I think it's a bit an understatement to say every game just now is a must-win for Kilmarnock. They need to hit a bit of form for somewhere. Their form has just in free fall, really, since they beat Hamilton. On January 9th, they have lost every game outside of a 1-1 draw with Dundee United. The problem is they've not scored in a lot of these games. The 2 games they have scored, sort of more than 2, and they've conceded 3 as well. So, yeah, if you can't score at one end and you're conceding too many at the other, it's obviously a recipe for disaster. And he needs to remedy that quick. It did look like they'd made some positive steps under Tommy Wright Kilmarnock, but the game on Saturday, it just didn't happen for them. And finally, St Johnstone won, Hibs 0. It's all going very well for St Johnstone just now. They've got an outside chance of the top 6 should Hamilton give them a big favour away at home to St Mirren. They sit 2 points outside the top 6 after a good victory over Hibs, so a win for them in their next match. St Mirren drop points. They do need St Mirren to drop points. It isn't in their hands, so they need Hamilton to do them a big favour. And subsequently, they can do Hamilton a favour. They've got Ross County at home, so as long as they pick up 3 points in that one, and Hamilton beat St Mirren, St Johnstone will be the top 6 side. Not in their hands, but the way they're playing just now, they'll fancy it going their way after the League Cup final. For Jack Ross's side, fans will just be hoping they don't. They're in such a strong position in third spot. They've had their chances to pull away from Aberdeen, but it just hasn't quite happened for them. Lost now back-to-back to both bottom 6 sides in consecutive weekends. They did have that run of 4 wins that did elevate them into that third spot, but considering Aberdeen's form, they'll have liked to have been a bit further ahead in that third spot. And then on the Sunday, Dundee United 0, Celtic 0. Obviously, the ramifications of this result taking the headlines. Dundee United played really well. Mickey Mellon doing a lot of good work in terms of his tactics in this game. Not completely nullified Celtic because Benjamin Siegrist had the most saves of any Premiership goalkeeper in this one. But I think while that is a decent stat, he did make 3 or 4 really good saves. It's perhaps a bit misleading for how the game actually was. A lot of those shots were from 20-25 yards straight at him. Celtic just sort of ran out of ideas. They looked quite good in the first half. Were probably unlucky not to be ahead. Then in the second half, Dundee United were the better team, and by the end of it, you couldn't have begrudged them Mickey Mellon's side if they'd scored. Whilst it is a decent point for them, it's not one that actually helps them all that much. It pretty much kills any chances of them getting into the top 6. They are still 3 points outside it, so technically they could still sneak it, but they would need an 8-goal swing on St Mirren, considerable amount on St Johnstone as well. So you need St Johnstone to lose to Ross County at home, St Mirren to lose away to Hamilton considerably by at least 3 or 4 goals, and then Dundee United to beat Aberdeen by 3 or 4 goals at Tannadice. So, yeah, probably unlikely. But given they're only just back in the top flight, it's probably not the worst season for Mickey Mellon's side. Perhaps not an entirely exciting one, but it keeps them safe in the top flight of Scottish football, and they're returning it, and they've never really been in any relegation fears. Right, that's all we've got time for on this video. We hope you have enjoyed. Do remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Probably be a wee bit quieter over the sort of next 10 to 14 days just with the lack of Premiership action. Take a wee bit of a breather. But after that, we should be back into the busy schedule ahead. So do keep subscribed and check out our website and stuff. Still plenty of content going out there daily just now. Now, enough of my rambling. Do remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time.